अभी तो कैमरा पोजीशन इज ओके ना उधर से वो देख लीजिएगा. Okay, so welcome. Finally, we are starting and we are doing a PYQ session. And the purpose of the PYQ session is to what enrich you with the type of questions that UPSC ask. Now, basically, when you talk about PYQs, one of the biggest contribution is you become what familiar with the exact language of UPSC questions. So when we know the language of UPSC question, we are able to identify the keywords. Now, mind you, see in each and every question of UPSC, UPSC will definitely be giving you keywords hints and which you should be sharp enough to ultimately identify. So we will be working on what how to identify those keywords. Yeah, and if you identify those keywords, that means you will be able to apply your knowledge, conceptual knowledge, and you will be able to even guess those answers which are not direct in nature. Now, another thing that UPSC PYQs actually tell is they tell about the type of options being asked by UPSC. So once you do what last 30 years of PYQs, you are also seeing last 30 years of options. So that means so you are getting the exposure to wide variety of options. So when the new paper is going to come, again, they will look very similar and familiar. Next is you also sharpen your skills how to do trick-based questions and even do those questions which are not coming from the theory part, which is purely logical in nature. Now, but before starting all those areas, let us start the class with first of all my introduction. Okay, so my name is Ritesh Kumar Singh. With more than 25 years of working experience. So I am an ex-civil servant. So I worked with Government of India as a lateral entry civil servant in Ministry of Rural Development. So my background is I have my masters from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and MBA from Narsi Monji. So I started my career in rural development projects in the states that you know, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, in the remote areas, in community development projects. Then you must be reading in Companies Act, there's a thing called corporate social responsibility. So on the basis of my community development, I shifted to CSR of a company called Larsen and Toubro. It's based in Andheri, Mumbai. Then on the basis of these experience of working in the social sector, corporate sector, I got into Government of India, the scheme called NRLM, National Rural Livelihood Mission, run by Ministry of Rural Development. In that, I was positioned in the state of Gujarat, capital Gandhinagar, for 4 years, 2010 till 2013. And in that scheme, I was managing the entire state with the responsibility of HR and admin, human resource and administration. After that, when I left the government job in 2013, then I started to teach. So for 10 years, I taught in Rouse IS, 2013 till 2013 last till 2023 last. And for last 2 years, I have been visiting faculty across the institutions. So please come. So visiting faculty across the institutions. And my expertise is I teach the most difficult portions of the main examination. So for example, if the main examination we talk about, broadly the papers can be divided into three parts. For example, there are general areas which is history, geography and polity. And these general areas are mostly the strong areas of most of the students because they've got their notes, their books, and they have done this thing repeatedly in the coaching classes also, test series also. Second areas are those areas which are current affairs driven. For example, economy, environment, disaster management, IR, security, and science and tech. So that means you require a proper track of at least 1+ years of current affairs. So if you're done good in these areas in terms of current affairs, you can answer these questions also. But the most challenging areas are the concept area, deeply concept area, like essays, especially philosophical essays, ethics, governance, Indian society, and social justice. So these are the areas which are usually not very well taught in most of the coachings. And these are the areas which, if we combine, will be around 600+ marks in the main examination. And those students who actually focus on these areas and get good marks, they easily clear the main examination. So my strong area are teaching the conceptual areas because I teach on the basis of my working experience in the social sectors, okay, the corporate and the government. So I teach very applied. So in a manner, I upgrade those conceptual areas. So as I've got a broader understanding of what field application as well as working in the government and for teaching for last 13 years, so I'm opening this PYQ session also. Though I specifically do not teach prelims examination. I teach for the main examination. But my purpose is to what understand you which are the keywords on the basis of command on language that UPSC actually builds up, yes, in any aspirant. So let us see how to command certain keywords, how to command certain what language specific things or the ideas which you should be requiring. So, but before that, let us see if you are going for the examination, if you have to attempt 100 questions in the examination, are you supposed to attempt all the 100 questions in the examination? Are you? No. So that means, so what should be your maximum attempt? Maximum attempt in the paper should be around 75 to 80 questions. And let us see in those 80 questions, which are the areas to target first. So I am going to first of all open how to actually what target those questions which can easily be helping you in reaching the cutoff limit. So let us start with that first, yes. Okay, so what is our number of attempts? Should be 80 MCQs in GS paper 1. 80 MCQs in GS paper 1. So 80 MCQs in GS paper 1 are basically the target. Now this 80 MCQs can be divided into, so 50 MCQs which can be purely from what? The area which are basic and static in nature. Basic and static in nature. And the remaining 30, yes, the remaining 30 MCQs should be from what? Your current affairs. Current affairs. Clear? So 50 and 30. So this should be a ratio. Now, when I am talking about 50 here, so which can be those basic and static areas we have to identify. Now, what should be the purpose of doing the paper? The purpose of doing the paper is to increase your confidence when you start the paper. So that means when you are going to increase your confidence when you start the paper, that means you will be working on a very high note. When you're working very high note, that means you will be getting many questions in a right, because you're in the right frame of mind. And if you are stuck initially with the most difficult ones, that means your confidence will go down, and even you will be doing those things incorrect which you can do correctly in any situation. So which are those areas to be identified from 50 MCQ part? For most of the students, the easiest portion is basically polity. Easiest portion is basically polity now. So let's start with polity. How many questions from polity each and every year? Around 12. It can be maximum 15 MCQs, 12 to 15. Yes. So minimum 12. Minimum 12 questions will be there. So once you have got question paper in your hand, so what you will be doing is flip through the pages and come to the page and you find the maximum polity questions, because your task is to upgrade your confidence. So polity questions now. So this will be the first. Now polity questions should be the first. This should be followed by then area where the many questions can be done is modern India. Modern Indian national movement. So modern Indian national movement again will be around 7 to 8 multiple choice questions. Very clear? So that means the confidence booster questions are. So here 12 to 15, here it is 7 to 8. To confidence booster are around 20 multiple choice questions. Very clear? Now, let's now come to another area in which many questions can be answered. For example, let's talk about your basic geography. Basic geography. So basic geography questions can be again 7 to 8 multiple choice questions. Basic geography. Geography plus environment goes 20 plus. And environment is mostly current affairs. Okay, here we are talking about basic geography. So basic geography can be divided into, for example, one subpart can be climatology. So in the climatology, at least 2 MCQs will be there. Climatology, 2 MCQs will be there. Now, second, when you talk about geomorphology, yes, so geomorphology, here the questions are not regularly asked, but definitely you must have gone through various landforms. You may be remembering some of the terms, yes. So 1 MCQ can be a possibility. Now, oceanography is again an area where the questions are not being regularly asked, but question can come from ocean currents, warm currents and cold currents. Okay, so here the oceanography is mostly ocean currents. You should be very, very good with respect to ocean currents. So one question here. So around 4 questions will be here from the climatology, geomorphology and oceanography. Remaining 4 questions will be from Indian geography. Yes, will be from Indian geography. Remaining 4 questions will be from Indian geography. Very clear? So Indian geography, which are those areas we'll be seeing as we progress with the class. Okay, which are the key areas which you should be revising. Now, so that means, so polity, modern India, basic geography. Now let's talk about basic economy. So when you talk about economy questions, again there will be 12 to maximum 15 questions from economy. 12 questions minimum. And these 12 questions can be divided into 2 parts. Basic static economy and the 5 or 6 current affairs economy. So let's talk about basic economy for 5 to 6 multiple choice questions. Basic economy. Now in this basic economy, the common questions which can be answered by any students who understand basic economy: national income, GNP, GDP, all these type of things, monetary policy committee, or maybe the open market operations. These are basic things are being asked. So here at least 5 to 6 questions come on what year to year basis can be answered by you easily. Now let's talk about fifth. Now fifth, immediately if you've done mapping, yes, if you've done mapping, so that means locations. Locations 2 to 3 multiple choice questions. Mapping 2 to 3 multiple choice questions. So mapping can be linked mostly with current affairs. Okay, but here mapping can be 2 or 3 questions which can easily be done by you. And then sixth comes the area which is AMC, ancient, medieval and culture. Ancient, medieval and culture. So when we combine ancient, medieval and culture, there are around what 10 to 12 questions. 10 to 12 questions will be here. So all in all, when we see all these combinations, so this will be hovering around 45 to 50 multiple choice questions. Very clear? So hence we have to identify among these which are the areas which you should be keep on revising again and again as we progress with the sessions. Now besides this, 30 questions from the current affairs part. 30 MCQs from the current affairs part. So current affairs, you know where to pick up. Yes, economy, at least 5 multiple choice questions. What is it? Now science and technology, around 6 to 8 multiple choice questions. Environment, around 10 to 12 multiple choice questions. Now international organizations, again can be 2 to 3 to 4. Yes, 4 MCQs. International organizations means 2 to 4 questions. Now further can be miscellaneous. So miscellaneous can be maybe schemes. So schemes can be at least 2 MCQs. So economy 5 MCQs, science and tech 6 to 8, environment 10 to 12, international organization around 4 MCQs. Now miscellaneous, we are talking about schemes. Now besides that, sometimes there is a question which is basically what symbolic of history, but actually current affairs, because we know various ASI excavations. There are various reports. Recently, Kilagadi excavation. Okay, so that means we are talking about all those current affairs which may be highlighting the static portion. So that means, so that part of history becomes now current because it is coming in the news currently. So here, so those can be, so additionally there can be 4 to 5 more miscellaneous questions which can be linked with polity, which can be linked with history. So these will be around 30 multiple choice questions from the current affairs part. So for that, last 12 months of current affairs should be revised at least twice. So now these are the areas of 80 questions which should be mastering on. Now on this basic understanding, now let us understand with respect to our initial areas, which are the basic areas, how to understand those questions and how to actually approach them, yes, on the basis of language. So now let's talk about Indian polity first, because we have to start with Indian polity. So Indian polity, so let's focus on the Indian polity part. Now, so when you talk about Indian polity, yes, all those things are important that you done in polity, your basic notes, or maybe M. Lakshmikant, जो भी आपने पढ़ी होगी, all those revisions are extremely important. But I'm going to hint towards additional things on which UPSC may be asking question directly or can be inferred from the statements being given by UPSC. They may be connecting to certain parts which are usually neglected. For example, a thing which is neglected by the students in terms of polity preparation is amendments, constitutional amendments. So constitutional amendments we are talking about. So we have got more than 100 plus amendments. Now, why the amendments are required? To adjust with the changing political, social and economic dimensions of the growth of the country, or the new demands which are being put in terms of what? New reforms. So all these are being included in terms of what? Constitutional amendments. So what you are supposed to do is, you are supposed to read all those amendments, but thinking about that time period requirement. For example, when you start with the first constitutional amendment, which talks about adding of ninth schedule, which protected all the land reforms laws, that was a need of the hour, because we were abolishing zamindari, we were abolishing the princely states. Yes, okay. Hence, it required land reforms. So property was seen as a fundamental right. Initially, तो आया ही था constitution में, so it cannot be challenged. So all the state-led interventions was required to be protected. Hence, ninth schedule and hence first amendment. So all the amendments that you are supposed to read till now, 21st century, see the period specific, context specific. Then you will be able to connect why these were required. Clear? So amendments are to be revised. Now, usually I've seen a trend in which the UPSC puts a question. Yes, they give what various commissions and ask whether this is a constitutional body, this is a statutory body, or this is created by executive order. You have to identify which of the following are constitutional bodies, are statutory bodies. Okay, so here you should be going through all these commissions. And we know all commissions: backward commissions, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, women, okay, labor, law commission also is there. But law commission is created by executive order. It's neither a statutory body nor a constitutional body. So important commissions. Now, sometimes randomly there can be a question of president of India and presidential or elections. Yes. Now we know the presidential election is little complicated to understand, because there is a system about electoral college, there's a vote variance, there's a proportional representation. Okay, how the value of the votes being calculated. So there can be a question on that. But this year was not a presidential election, but definitely this year there was a vice president election. So there is a more of a probability of a question being on the vice president. Just a minute. Okay, so vice president of India. So a new vice president. So what is the difference between the manner of election for a president and the vice president? What is the difference between the electoral college for the president and the vice president? Okay, and how they can be removed also, the impeachment process. Now, at least 3 or 4 times the parliament actually is in session. Now parliament is in session, so what is the most important task is passage of bills. So means bill passing procedures you should be knowing thoroughly. Okay, all the bills, ordinary bills, constitutional amendment bills, money bills, financial bills, you know, and procedures: first reading of the bill, second reading of the bill, third reading of the bill, select committee. So that means all the bill passing procedures should be there, along with what? Procedures in the parliament. Like you must recently heard about uh, no confidence motion against the speaker. So what is a no confidence motion? How it can be processed against a speaker? Now privilege motion, okay, breach of the privilege, yes, of the member of parliament or the minister. Okay. Now, so all these things, so all the parliamentary procedures become important. Now, all the schedules are important, yes, but usually the questions are being asked on what? 5th and 6th schedule, because sometimes it is for a student who has not deeply read. 5th and 6th schedules can confuse them very easily. Now, Lok Sabha election number and year. So we are currently in what? Which Lok Sabha? 16, 17, 18th. So yes, you require a reconfirmation. So you should be knowing, yes, this we are sitting currently in 18 Lok Sabha. 18 Lok Sabha. Now, so how many states are now going for elections? At least five. So it's UPSC can give you maybe, okay, match the number of legislative assembly seats with the state. Because when we are going to talk about Tamil Nadu, when we are going to talk about West Bengal, the seats are almost similar in nature. When we talk about Kerala and Assam, again the MLAs number are almost similar in nature. So UPSC can confuse you. And it's easy to confuse when they have got similarity in numbers. So henceforth, so number of seats for MPs and MLAs, again state wise. And this will mostly be on the basis of the current elections. So see the elections in the 2025, which states have went to the election, and the coming states which are going to elections in 2026. So these are the additional things which you should be taking care of. Okay. Yes, after the discussion, I will be sharing this PDF with all of you. Okay, so you just focus on the class. Let's see now the question, the keywords now. In essence, what does due process of law mean? Yes. Now, due process of law, this will not be covered in maybe in a notes properly, or maybe not being explained in what maybe even properly in the constitution. But let's talk about due process. There's a word called process. So process is linked with a thing called manufacturing. So that means when you are manufacturing a product, it should be of a proper shape, size, okay, color. Okay, that means it should not be distorted. For example, if a company is manufacturing a car, it has to pass through a process. So that process is extremely controlled in terms of conditions and preventing any external influence which can disrupt that process. Very clear. So that means all the things should be controlled, should be protected from external influence. So here, process of law, the same condition is going to apply here. Means reaching to the justice in such a manner where all the arbitrary action should be controlled. All the arbitrary action should be prevented. In which all the institutions should be doing their role transparently with full accountability. For example, police filing the FIR, police start investigating as early as possible. Then it should be supported by proper evidences on the basis of proper scientific forensic labs, and on the basis of that there should be rational filing of the charge sheets. Then it should lead to early hearing in courts, okay, then regular hearing in the courts leading to judgment. So all the processes should be followed without any external arbitrariness. So when external arbitrariness is not there, the process of law will be leading to a thing called natural justice. And this is actually universally applicable. When you put this in different condition also, different country also, it will lead to the same result, natural justice. So that means this will not be the option, procedure established by law. So because the procedure established by law can also be faulty, can have various loopholes. So many times we pass various bills in the parliament which are not referred to the select committee, can have various gaps in the laws which then later can be challenged in the courts. So procedures established by law may not always be leading to natural justice, okay, or which will not be symbolic of due process of law. Fair application of law can come close to the natural justice, but again this is law specific. Natural justice is, it may not be codified, but in all the condition will be leading to natural fair play. Equality before law? No. So that means when we are going to interpret, we are going to interpret in such a manner that we apply the maximum logic here. Now next is, which one of the following statements best reflect the chief purpose of the constitution of a country? Chief purpose. Let's see the first. It determines the objective for the making of the necessary laws. Is constitution necessary for making laws? Because there are various countries which are having monarchy. Monarchy may not be having the constitution. Yes. Previously also, when India was not a democratic republic, India was also having controlled by various monarchs. So they had their laws, but that does not require a constitution. Now next is, it enables the creation of political offices in the government. Again, the political offices and a government are there in monarchies also. So it may not be requiring a constitution. Now let's see the D first. It secures social justice. Having a constitution secures social justice, social equality, social security. Do you agree with this? Because there can be constitution where all these words may not be mentioned. Only in the Indian Constitution, our preamble talks about social justice. So that means the most logical answer is C. It defines and limits the power of the government. Okay, what they can do, what they cannot do. Okay. So we have to scrutinize each and every word statement in such a manner that we comes to the best on the most logical answer. Now see, as I was talking about various commissions now, consider the following organizations bodies. National Commission for Backward Classes. Is a constitutional or statutory? It is a constitutional body, yes. Now, National Human Rights Commission is statutory, yes, from the Act of 1993. Law Commission is by executive order. And National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission is again a statutory body under the Consumer Protection Act of 1986. So that's why I highlighted deliberately this type of question is randomly being asked by UPSC to check how much you know about all these commissions in the country. Because usually the commissions are in news due to current affairs, that is basically on newspapers. Especially National Commission of Women is mostly coming to news. Now there was also a news that for the last 1 year, National Minority Commission is running without a chairperson and other members. So National Minority Commission. So commissions you should be knowing. Now, okay, sorry. Next is if the election of the President of India is declared void, yes, or cancelled by the Supreme Court, all acts done by him or her in the performance of his or her duties as President before the date of such cancellation becomes invalid. ऐसा क्यों नहीं होना, ऐसा क्यों होता है कि invalid नहीं होगा? Why? Reason. हाँ वो ठीक है, आपका सही है. इसमें एक और लॉजिक लगा लेते हैं, सिंपल सा भाई. अगर if the election of the president is declared null and void, that means this person has to resign. Now whatever task being done by that person should stay. Why? Because by his election being declared null and void, why the ruling government should suffer? Because actually the major task of the president is to approve the bills, assent to the bills, and the bills are basically carried to the parliament proposed by the ruling governments. So actually ruling government will suffer the most. So hence those work will stand, will not be. So think very logically. अगर आपको पॉलिटी पढ़ी भी नहीं है तो think logically कि actually में नुकसान किसका होगा. Now next is election for the post of the President of India can be postponed on the ground that some state assemblies have been dissolved and the elections are yet to take place. हर 5 साल में president का election होता है, usually in the month of July, and that should be before the expiry of the term. So in each and every year in India, 4 or 5 states will always be under election. So only the adjustment of the electoral college votes will be made, not the stalling of the presidential election. ठीक है? Now when a bill is presented to the President of India, the Constitution prescribes time limit. ये तो सभी को पता है, नहीं है, क्योंकि उसके बाद pocket veto भी होता है ना? So all these statements, अगर आपको ठंड लग रही है तो बंद करें थोड़ी देर. We are fine. She is feeling. Oh, it's okay. बता देना है ना. नहीं I'm very okay. I'm very okay. So that means see, all these questions are very doable questions. So polity questions are most doable questions, only checking your way of what reading and understanding. Sometimes what happens in the heat of the moment when we are doing examination, we overread, we underread, yes, and we misread also certain words. So that leads to the problem. But for a sincere student like you, you can definitely answer most of these questions. Next is, pursuant to the report of H.N. Salian Committee, the Contempt of the Court Act 1971 was passed. Even if you are not knowing this, अगर आपको नहीं पता है, let's see the other 3 statements. The Constitution of India empowers the Supreme Court and High Courts to punish for contempt of themselves. Yes, movies में भी देखा होगा, जज धमकाता है कि मैं contempt court के लिए तुम्हें punish करूँगा. So they are actually having the powers. Yes. Next is, the Constitution of India defines civil contempt and criminal contempt. It is not defined. It is defined by the Act, not by the Constitution. In India, the Parliament is vested with the powers to make laws on contempt of court. Contempt of court के लिए क्या Parliament law बना सकता है? बना सकता है, क्योंकि इफ वी गो बाय डीपीएसपी आर्टिकल 50 क्या कहता है, सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स. सो सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर्स को और स्ट्रेंथन करने के लिए देयर मे बी रिक्वायरमेंट ऑफ एन एक्ट, एंड डीपीएसपी ऑल द आर्टिकल्स पार्लियामेंट कैन फ्रेम एन एक्ट. क्लियर. सो ये आर्टिकल 50 के अंदर आ जाता है. तो इसी को यूज करते हुए ये वाला एक्ट आया था, कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ द कोर्ट एक्ट, यस, 1971. क्लियर. सो हमें सिर्फ एक एक स्टेटमेंट का लॉजिक देखना है. सो व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, यस, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, so two areas are very very extremely important in terms of you remembering those articles, fundamental rights and DPSP. Each and every year there will at least be one question of fundamental right on DPSP. वो दो एरियाज ऐसे हैं जहां पे and 100% you will be getting your answer right. Now this is interesting. With reference to India, consider following statements. Government law officers, so that means this is the first, legal firms the second, are recognized as, keyword is advocates. But the lawyers working in corporates, and again the patent attorneys working at the company level, are excluded from the recognition as advocates. Now this is just maybe just based on what? Your general awareness. People are usually confused lawyer, advocate, okay, barrister, attorney. So there are certain terms being used. Now all of these are lawyers because they've got a degree in law. So every person who has passed or got a degree of law are lawyers. But lawyers can only practice in the court when they become advocates. So they have to pass the examination conducted by the bar council. Then they get a license to perform. Now let's see the statement again. Government law officers, they are termed as attorneys. Attorneys, clear? And attorneys are definitely advocates because they have the license to practice in the court. Legal firms are recognized as advocates. Firms themselves are not recognized as advocates, but they are hiring lawyers and advocates. Because when we talk about company is also an entity. So company is not an advocate, but a company is functioning as a legal service provider, will be hiring lawyers and and advocates. So even in the first half of this statement, this is right and this is wrong. Now let's talk about the corporate lawyers. Now, also, will corporates be only hiring those lawyers, or which will be having just a law degree, or even the corporate lawyer can also get a license to what practice in the court? They can also get, so they can be advocates, but they have to inform the bar council that they are the paid salary of a company. ये condition है. So even the lawyers functioning in the companies, they can also be advocates. Provided the condition, they should have informed the bar council about such type of monetary gains. Clear? Now, patent attorneys again can be advocates. So the first statement is actually wrong. Second is bar councils have the power to lay down the rules relating to legal education recognition. This is a very general statement. This is right. Because all the law colleges, legal courses, they get an approval from bar council. Now, let's note down some terms where the UPSC can confuse you. There was also a question asked by UPSC in what? The difference between a police custody and judicial custody. Police custody and judicial custody. Note down certain terms. Police custody and judicial custody. Now, other terms which are coming into our reading, we have seen in movies also, are, for example, cognizable and non-cognizable offense. Cognizable and non-cognizable offense. Cognizable and non-cognizable offense. Now again, another term, there's a compoundable offense and there's a non-compoundable offense. Compoundable offense and non-compoundable offense. Okay, so these are the terms which are going to check your general awareness. May not be directly in the books, but these we read in the newspaper and we hear somewhere or see somewhere all these type of words. Now, next is, okay, next question. Okay, now, This is also very easy. Constitution of India classifies the ministers into 4 ranks: cabinet, minister of state. ऐसा कहीं नहीं. Constitution of India mentions only council of ministers. Okay. Now, the total number of ministers in a union government, including the prime minister, shall not exceed 15% of the total members. Okay. So this was a Constitutional Amendment Act again, 91st. Because there were time when more and more jumbo cabinets were emerging in states like UP, because to get the support from what are supporting parties permanently, so their members were also included as ministers. So hence it was a way of checking the number of members in the council of ministers. Now further, which of the following are the exclusive power or powers of the Lok Sabha? To ratify the declaration of emergency, लॉजिकल ही सोचें, अगर हमें नहीं भी पता है. See, emergency, if you talk about national emergency, will be applicable, for example, Pan India. Now, Pan India means all the states will be impacted. So that means some form of what states, maybe acceptance is also required. And state acceptance come from Rajya Sabha. So in terms of declaration of emergency, it should be ratified by both the houses. Okay. Now, second, to pass a motion of no confidence against the council of ministers. Yes, this is exclusive, because they are answerable to the House of People. Third, to impeach the president. Impeach the president नहीं चाहिए. Sure. Exclusive नहीं. हाँ, exclusive नहीं है. हाँ, exclusive नहीं है. Because when we talk about electoral college is comprised of the Rajya Sabha members also. Once they are being required for appointment, they can also required for removal also. Good. So all the questions are mostly actually doable in polity. Now let's talk about the 5th schedule. If a particular area is brought under the 5th schedule of the Constitution, which one of the following statement best reflects the consequences of it? Consequence of it, not consequences, consequence. See, most of these will be close. First of all, these two are almost close. Third is incorrect. This was convert that area into UT, because at this moment there are 10 states having 5th schedule areas. So that means all those 5th schedule declared areas are no more UTs. Yes, they are not UTs. Whether the states having such areas would be declared special category state? No. Now let's talk about these two one. This would prevent the transfer of land of tribal people to non-tribal people. Is the most closest answer. This would create a local self-government body in that area. Yes, PESA, Panchayat Extension Schedule areas. But the major what the impact of 5th schedule is to prevent the land transfer. Because we have seen most of the tribal revolts during time of Britishers, mostly coming of the outsiders, grabbing the land, coming of the money lenders, okay, creating what economic problems for the people. So hence preventing. So this is the closest one, A. So इसने कहा ना best reflects, यानी कि two statements are coming very close. So which is the best? This one is the best. Now under the Indian Constitution, concentration of wealth violates, you all know, DPSP Article 39. Yes, B and C, है ना? Concentration of wealth. Right to property, legal right available to citizens only, legal rights available to any person. Now, अगर आपको ये नहीं पता है कि citizen person में नहीं पता है, you are confused. Imagine we talk about FDI, and FDI, they are foreign companies investing, buying land in the country. So that means that they are also protected under legal right. Yes. Okay. So थोड़ा सा logic लगाएंगे, नहीं भी पता है, we can answer. Now, what was the exact constitutional status of India on 26 January 1950? You all know. Okay. Yes, we declared ourselves sovereign. We declared ourselves democratic and republic. Other two words were added later. 42nd. Now, this one. Constitutional government means a representative government of a nation with a federal structure. When you talk about India, India is not fully federal, it is quasi-federal. But we are a country having constitutional governance. There can be countries which can be unitary also. Okay, driven by the constitution. Now, a government whose head enjoys nominal power. It is defined by the constitution whether the head will be having nominal powers or the full powers. The same case here also. So hence, the constitutional government means closely a government limited by the terms of the constitution. ये यूनिटरी पे भी अप्लाई होगा, ये फेडरल पे भी अप्लाई होगा, क्वासी फेडरल पे भी अप्लाई होगा, सब पे होगा. So it is going to set a limit for the government. Now this is interesting. A legislation which confers on the executive or administrative authority, for example, a civil servant or maybe a DM, an unguided and uncontrolled discretionary power in the matter of the application of law violates which one of the following articles of the Constitution? Article 14. Because if the person is inherently biased, okay, is coming out various biasness against particular gender or maybe particular community, okay, or particular area of people, can be applying the law which can be discriminatory in nature. So it goes against Article 14. तो हम इमीडिएटली सोचेंगे ग्रास रूट सिचुएशन में इसका क्या असर पड़ेगा, rather than thinking about एम लक्ष्मीकांत, think about the practical application, है ना. तो उसके accordingly we are going to understand. Now this is also very easy. With reference to India, consider the following statements. There is only one citizenship and one domicile. We cannot have two domiciles. Okay. A citizen by birth can only become the head of the state, because when we talk about a president, eligibility condition is a citizen of India. That does not mean only the born citizen. Yes. A foreigner once granted citizenship cannot be deprived of it. So it can be deprived, yes. It's completely the power of the government through the Citizenship Act of 1955. So these are not very difficult questions. These, ha, 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 ha. नहीं, इसमें डिफरेंसेस ये है कि वो दे आर गिविंग प्रेफरेंस टू देयर ओन डोमिसाइल्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ व्हाट अपॉइंटमेंट, फाइनल अपॉइंटमेंट. क्या? नहीं, हम ये बात कर रहे हैं इंडिया में क्या एक सिटीजन और एक डोमिसाइल चलता है? हाँ, वो चलता है. हाँ हाँ, तो हाँ, नहीं दोबारा बताइए मेरे को डिफरेंस. हाँ हाँ. हम्म. हाँ हाँ. हम्म. हाँ, स्टेट्स. हाँ हाँ हाँ. बेसिकली वो स्टेट्स अपने 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 एरिया के लोगों को खुश करना चाहते हैं, अपने स्टेट के लोगों को. सिंपल बात वो है. पावर नहीं, वो बात उसको चैलेंज करना पड़ेगा फिर, है ना. द वे ओनली थिंग इज, अगर रूल ऑफ लॉ के अकॉर्डिंग जाना है, यू हैव टू चैलेंज दैट. ओके. द क्वेश्चन इज हु इज गोइंग टू चैलेंज दैट. तो प्रॉब्लम होती है वहां पे चैलेंज करने वाली. तो हाँ, सो वो उसको कर रहे हैं तो गलत कर रहे हैं, लेकिन वो गलत तो चैलेंज करना पड़ेगा ना. अब आप ही लोग करेंगे, है ना. हाँ, आप ही लोग करेंगे. जस्ट ट्राई टू चैलेंज दैट. फाइल अ पिटीशन. सी रेसिडेंसी स्टेटस कोई माइग्रेंट है उसको दे दिया, है ना. Domicile is mostly naturally born there. Yes, we residing there with what native native what address there itself, the village there itself. Okay, schooling there itself completely. Now, which of the following factors constitute the best safeguard of liberty in a liberal democracy? Now, this is interesting. Which of the following factors constitute the best safeguard of liberty in a liberal democracy? A committed judiciary, centralization of powers तो होगा नहीं लिबर्टी को, है ना. इट विल लीड टू कंसंट्रेशन ऑफ पावर व्हिच कैन लीड टू मोर मैनिपुलेशन ऑफ लिबर्टी. Elected government cannot be the guarantor of what liberty, because elected government themselves can be a suppressor of liberty if the things goes against them. Separation of powers, but in India there is separation of powers, but still when we find sometimes there is a suppression of freedom of speech, expression, liberty. इसका एक छोटा सा अंडरस्टैंडिंग है. So let us do something, है ना. Let's see the stakeholders in the entire governance process, है ना. So which are the stakeholders? Now when we talk about the stakeholders in governance, now stakeholder one are basically the elected governments, है ना. Now what are their major roles? Their major role is basically policy making, okay, ensure their implementation, and finally further monitoring and evaluation for improvement. Yes, major task. Okay. Now in this they are supported by stakeholder 2, and stakeholder 2 is comprising of bureaucracy plus police. Okay, so mostly they help in what? Execution of work. Okay, and they also act as a guide to the elected representatives. But both of them are actually can be seen as state actors. Now in a governance system, we have two wheels, state and non-state. So we require basically the cross check from the non-state actors. So stakeholder 3 are the non-state actors, who can be common people in their organizations. That's why we read about pressure groups and civil society organizations. So collectively they can be pressure groups, and each one of us individually can also be a non-state actor as a pressure person, not a pressure group. Now, what we expect from all the three stakeholders? All the three stakeholders, we expect that all those should be abiding with rule of law. Okay, the executive in terms of actions. Okay, the legislature in terms of passage of the laws. Okay, or the bills. Bureaucracy in terms of the application. Police in terms of what? Again, application responding. And even the non-state actors, they should also be doing their duties on daily basis. But if the violation done by all of these, any of these, violation in terms of rule of law, that means then comes the stakeholder 4, then comes the role of a judiciary. Okay, then comes the role of judiciary. That means all of the stakeholders are supposed to work according to the rule of law, but the final guardian of the application of rule of law becomes judiciary. Okay, that means if any form of liberty is violated by either the elected government or the bureaucracy or the police or by the people themselves, okay, creating discrimination, separation of any sort of people. So if the liberty is being violated by any of these, so who will be deciding? Judiciary. So what is required is a committed judiciary is required in terms of what? Promoting liberty. Okay, so committed वहाँ पे word है towards the liberty. यहाँ पे जो यहाँ पे एक इसी वर्ड का जो कंट्रोवर्सी हुई थी वहाँ पे यूपीएससी के एग्जामिनेशन में, यहाँ पे वर्ड एक्चुअली में आना चाहिए था इंडिपेंडेंट जुडिशरी, लेकिन जब इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ द ऑल दी ऑप्शंस हम देखते हैं तो सबसे क्लोज यही आता है. तो यहाँ पे जो वर्ड का जो चॉइस किया गया वो रॉन्ग है. तो कम्प्लीट जुडिशरी का मतलब होता है जो दैट इज कम्प्लीट अलाइंड विद द गवर्नमेंट, है ना. तो हियर बट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट in the answer key, the answer was given this A, but here the actual term which is actually being used here, as you stated clearly, should be a independent judiciary. Independent judiciary. Clear? Okay. Right to privacy आपको पता ही article 21 में आता है. So that means, so what you know is you are going to start with the polity questions. Now as you are now going to go back to the PYQs, okay, in each and every question, before solving that or before seeing the answer, just identify the keywords in each and every line, and even the top question statements, and even in the maybe a lower statement which are given in terms of solving the question. So try to identify the keywords there. Okay, so modern India, I hope these are the areas which you should be focusing on. For example, colonial powers, location of factories with chronology, plus one more thing. Now for example, when we talk about Portuguese factories or maybe Dutch factories, now some king or some kingdom would have given the permission, so you should be also be connecting with them. Yes, so here you should be adding the kings and the dynasties which were forced to give the concessions or which gave the concessions on their own. So kings and dynasties should also be connected. Now, so that's why this brings into picture regional kingdoms and dynasties. Okay. Now we know list of battles and treaties you may have done very clearly. So whether the Maratha war, the Mysore war, or the Sindh war, सब आपने करा, Sikh war, सब आपने किया होगा. Now definitely one question will coming from tribal movement, one from peasant movement, one from civil uprising. Social reform movement, definitely 1 to 2 questions annually comes. Now political organization which can be pre-coming of the Indian National Congress, and even after that also, and national movements, and now important newspapers and founders, and important books on colonial impact, yes, writers and their opinions. So these are the areas which become important from the perspective of the revision part. Yes. Now let's see some of the questions which can be very general in nature. ये बहुत easy question है. Okay. By which one of the following acts was the Governor General of Bengal designated as the Governor General of India? So that means जब वो when they are changing the designation or the terminology from the Governor General of Bengal to India, that means by the time the Britishers would have become the dominant force. So that means it would not have happened initially. It can be later only. So that means here they have deliberately not mentioned the years here. So regulating after 1773, this is 1784. Okay, now the regulating act ultimately came to regulate the actions of the company, because company became brutally corrupt after the battle of Plassey in Buxar. So that has to be controlled, hence regulating act came. East India Act means bifurcated the work, the commercial part and the administration part. Charter Act extended the commercial part for next 20 years. And now from 1793 to almost 1833, 40 plus years, it has expanded throughout. Okay, so company was used by the British monarch and British parliament to expand the territories in the country and finally declare themselves as the head of the country. Yes. So this came in 1833. 1833. तो इसमें भी वही लॉजिक लगेगा, जब बंगाल से इंडिया पे आना है यानी कि टाइम पीरियड लगा हुआ उसमें, तो इट शुड बी क्वाइट लेट. तो इसलिए अगर हमें नहीं भी पता है वी कैन गेस. नाउ जैसे ये वाला इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन है. इन द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1919 the functions of the provincial government were divided into reserved and transferred subjects. So which of the following were treated as reserved subjects? हाँ बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. हाँ, इसमें हमें क्या करना है अगर हमें नहीं भी पता है. So what the Britishers will be desiring to extend their rule over India for a longer period of time. So they will not be transferring the real power to the time they will not be compelled to. So hence to keep their hold, they will be keeping the hold on the justice system. They're keeping a hold on the revenue system because they are only looking for the revenue from India. वो कैसे ट्रांसफर करेंगे? And definitely revenue extract करना है तो पुलिस की ताकत चाहिए. So it is only logic 1, 3 and 4. Okay, now further, Cripps mission. The Constituent Assembly would have members nominated by the Provincial Assembly as well as the princely states. Elected by the provincial assemblies and nominated by the princely states. But good. And any province which is not prepared to accept a new constitution would have the right to sign a separate agreement. So it's two only. It's two only. So again यहाँ पे बस यही वर्ड पकड़ना था, nominated, है ना, क्योंकि ये इसमें अप्लाई नहीं होगा प्रोविंशियल असेंबलीज में. ओके अच्छा मैंने बोला दिखाया नहीं. हाँ ये वाला. अच्छा, who among the following, जैसे ये confusing है. Who among the following is associated with the songs from the prison or translation of ancient Indian religious lyrics, यानी कि religious गाने into English. Religious songs into English. सबसे पहले तो उसमें we should be eliminating Jawaharlal Nehru because he was a person who was agnostic, non-religious in nature. उन रिलीजन से मतलब नहीं था. ठीक है, बाकी तीनों को देखिए. तिलक was more into what aggressive religious what promotions like what Ganesh Chaturthi, है ना. So he was not subtle, he was aggressive. Sarojini Naidu, we are going to connect more with the poetry part. Okay, the only remaining person is M.K. Gandhi. Okay, so again we should be vigilant. So सबसे पहले तो eliminate B होता है. Then start thinking about the rest. Now this is an interesting one. Yes, with reference to the book Deshar Katha, means Desh ki Katha, written by Sakharam Ganesh Dweskar during the freedom struggle, consider the following statements. Now we all know, we have not read about this book. It is not even been mentioned in a book like Spectrum. नहीं मिलेगा. That means it is purely based on logic. Logic लगाना पड़ेगा. So first is, it warned against the colonial state's hypnotic conquest of mind. It inspired the performance of Swadeshi street plays and folk songs. And the use of Desh by Dweskar was in the context of Bengal. Okay. Now, so how many statements? So 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 1 and 3, That means, and last is 1, 2 and 3. This means what? Minimum 2 statements are correct. Minimum 2 are correct. So which can be most probably be correct? 1 and 2. Because see, it is talking about the impact of the colonial state on the mind of the people, the people of India. Yes, because we are talking about Desh. So that impact is, when talk about Indian subcontinent, it was universal in nature. So it may not be confined only to Bengal. So third statement can be eliminated. Clear? Now, जब हम यहाँ की बात करते हैं ancient, medieval and the culture part, yes. So there are certain areas which the students actually neglect. Mostly the prehistoric part. Paleolithic, Mesolithic and Neolithic part, है ना. So यहाँ पे each and every year at least one site-based question can be asked. And here what you're supposed to do is, have you drawn the maps for these? है ना. So कुछ नहीं करना, एक simple map बनाना है आपको. Yes. North, west, south and east. And plan the locations for all these three. And just when you read them 2 or 3 times, the names settled in your mind. So once you are able to see the options, you will be able to answer the question. So जिसने map नहीं बनाया वो map बना के छोड़ दे. Similarly for the IVC sites also, the location map becomes important, because I will be showing you a question which can only be answered by knowing which site is in which location. Vedic age, the text. We know about the Vedas, we know about the Brahmanas, the Aryankas, Upanishads. So which Brahmana is linked with which Veda? So also becomes important. So their interconnection is very much required. बंद करूं? ठंड लग रही तो? Okay. Mahajanpad, all those 16 Mahajanpad, their locations, their capital become important. So Mahajanpad, which of the Mahajanpads were linked with what Buddha and the Buddha's visit become important. Okay, impacted by Mahavira. Which of them were the republics? So all these become important here. Now dynasties, there are questions based on dynasties. Now, so you should be creating maps of the dynasties period specific. Okay, especially after the decline of a big empire. If the Mauryan Empire declares, so which are the dynasties which emerged later? Okay, when again the Guptas declared, which emerged after Harsha declined, so which are the dynasties emerged? Now also, yes, religion. Special questions are being asked on what? Buddhism and Jainism. Okay, so major kings, dynasties, philosophy, and the preachers. Rock edicts become important. So major, minor rock edicts are similarly pillar, major and minor. And which part of Ashoka's reign that they are actually symbolizing? The early part of his reign, the mature part, or the later part? Because the messages on those will be according to the phase of the reign of the Ashoka. So you will be able to interconnect. Travelers become important. Terms and meaning are being asked by UPSC. For example, Vishti, Bhoga and their meanings. So across you should be going to, especially starting with the Vedic period part. Similarly, important ministries and ministers, central level, okay, then provincial level, and even when talk about the local self-government level, the best system emerged in the time period Cholas, the greater Cholas, okay, the Panchayati Raj system of that time. Then division empire, Bhakti and Sufi preachers, and art and architecture. It is period and dynasty specific. Now, these are the range which you are supposed to revise. Let's see some of the questions. Now, Kautilya's Arthashastra, हमने भी नहीं पढ़ा है, आपने भी नहीं पढ़ा. Okay, so लेकिन UPSC ने पूछा. You may find such reference in certain books, but normally speaking, we have not read Kautilya's Arthashastra. So जो WhatsApp पे भेजते हैं उन्हीं को पता है. Otherwise, other people are not knowing what is Kautilya Arthashastra actually. But here, Kautilya means linked with somewhere with what? Mauryan period. That is more than 2000 years back. This was a time period when the empires were emerging. This was a time period when the economic stratification, social stratification was emerging. And the power was now more in the hand of the patriarchy. That means let's, on that context, whenever we try to solve the questions, go back to that time period and try to visualize. For example, a person could be a slave as a result of judicial punishment. This is a normal punishment across the empires. Normal punishment. If a female slave bore her master a son, she was legally free. Because in the patriarchal society, the prized possession is son. If that son is not being born from a legally wedded wife, then maybe and the lady who have given birth to a boy definitely will be getting the best gift, that is freedom. If a son born to a female slave was fathered by her master, the son was entitled to the legal status. Yes, it's as easy, because everything, the patriarchy, the social status is future continuity, economic status, future continuity is dependent upon having a male. So, so all the three statements will be correct. हमें उससे मतलब ही नहीं अर्थशास्त्र क्या करे, हमें we should be visualizing the time period and the thinking of the people. Now this is purely based on what, maybe the Indus Valley sites and their location, if you have those locations in your mind. Which one of the following ancient towns is well known for its elaborate, means properly developed system of water harvesting, water management by building a series of dams and channelizing water into the connected reservoirs? These are from IVC sites. So first is Dholavira. So Dholavira is the answer, but Dholavira is located where? Gujarat, especially in the driest part, that is Kutch. We know water harvesting and water conservation require more in those areas where there are no perennial flow of rivers, where there is lesser monsoon. Now, further, Kalibangan is the northern part of Rajasthan, Ghaggar river. So again, there's a maybe there's a nearby river. Rakhigadi, Haryana, Ropar, Punjab. So Punjab again rivers. Yes, Haryana is again Indo-Gangetic plain. So they may not be requiring what? Such elaborate water conservation system. Only a dry place will be requiring. Okay. So logic here is identify the driest place here. Now this is consider the following dynasties. Now dynasty and the chronology becomes important. How many of the above dynasties established their kingdom in the early 8th century AD? So here is 8th century AD. So 8th century AD, by this time what was happening? The decline of Harsha's empire. Okay, so which were the dynasties which were prominent? Only one? Which one? Gadawalas. Okay. Okay, so these were Gadawalas of Kannauj, Hoysalas of Helibet, Kakatiyas of Warangal, and Yadavas of Devgiri. You know? In this answer is none. Why? Because all of them begin to emerge from what? 10th century AD onwards. Okay. This was a time period when the tripartite struggle began to emerge. Yes. Okay. So Gurjar Pratiharas, Palas, and Rashtrakutas. Clear? So all these are not the part of this time period, later time period. So hence dynasties there. So that's why especially I talked about whenever major empire declined, which dynasties emerged, you need to connect them on a map. Now with reference to the Indian history, consider the following statements. ये आपको NCERT में मिलेगा. In the old NCERT, the first Mongol invasion of India happened during the reign of Jalaluddin Khilji. When you read NCERT, it was under time period of Iltutmish, the first one. Now during the reign of Alauddin Khilji, one Mongol assault marched up to Delhi and besieged the city. The first statement is wrong. Second, were the Mongols were able to reach Delhi? But here, when you see the historical fact, which has been again, so at that time period, Alauddin Khilji has to seek refuge, and he was hiding somewhere in Siri Fort, and he left Delhi because of Mongols only. Third statement, Muhammad bin Tughlaq temporarily lost portions of northwest of his kingdom. Muhammad bin Tughlaq, little later, by this time, the Mongol what threat to India had subsided. So third statement is also wrong. Answer is 2 only. So ये आपको बेसिक एनसीईआरटी मिलेगा. सो एनसीईआरटी थोड़ी बहुत पढ़ी है सबने? ठीक है, तो एक बार थोड़ी स्क्रूटनाइज करके और पढ़ना उसको डिटेल में. कीवर्ड्स, पिक अप द कीवर्ड्स. नाउ दिस इज द इंटरेस्टिंग वन. Who among the following rulers of Vijayanagar Empire constructed a large dam across Tungabhadra river and a canal cum aqueduct several kilometers long? Is talking about a large dam. Yes. हाँ, इसमें देवराय क्यों आंसर होगा? अगर आपको नहीं भी पता है, if you are not knowing about many of the Vijayanagar Empire kings, yes, but usually what we read about the founders Harihara and Bukkaraya, then we read about Devaraya 1, Devaraya 2, the major kings. then later Krishnadeva Raya. Now, so that means dam construction is a time-taking activity, and time-taking activity would have required a king which have ruled for a longer duration of time. Clear? Now, out of these four, only one is a major king. Rest of them are very lesser known kings. So, lesser known kings which may not have ruled for longer time period may not have constructed a large project. So, अगर नहीं भी पता है, if you are able to identify ये major है, ये आंसर होगा. तो यहाँ पे कई बार लॉजिक काम करता है. तो जब now you are going to do one PYQ, so think about the logic part of the questions. क्योंकि UPSC always give a hint in its questions. Now, as I was saying, okay, which of the following rulers of medieval Gujarat surrendered due to the Portuguese? That's why I was talking about that you should be connecting that with the king and the dynasty. So this is Ahmad dynasty of Gujarat. Okay. Now, so here you should be knowing about this. Now, let's talk about Indian geography. I hope you must have done this Indian geography. Okay, so Indian mountain system. So peaks, passes, vegetation, rivers which are originating, all the important area, and the peaks from what? Again, east to west, west to east. Okay, which of the following peaks and passes are there in which of the following states? So you should be able to what connect. Similarly, hill maps, location and features. So you should be drawing those maps. Rivers, where they are originating, basin, that is the area and the states, tributaries, distributaries, water dams, any lake, they should also be connected. Soil types, states, chemical properties and major crops. Now crops की बारे में बात करते हैं, so UPSC have a tendency of asking question on crops. So you should be knowing all the crops under MSP 23. So crops means the soil type, the crops means the area of production, which state is the highest producer. Okay, then that can also be which crop is a kharif crop, okay, which is a rabi crop, which is a zayed crop. So again all the three should be known. Same goes with the minerals and mine map. Tribes, so for example, even you should be knowing about PVTGs, tribal map. And the world map, the countries, their borders, rivers, drainage systems, again general understanding about the world mapping. Now if you master all of these, 3 to 4 questions can be answered in the examination. Now rest I mentioned climatology 2 questions, geomorphology and oceanography 1 question each. Now following statements, again, so this is again river connection with the lake. Now next is this can be a logic based question. India is more arable area than China. Yes, because China is mostly what mountainous and having a major desert area. The proportion of irrigated area is more in India as compared to China, because in China it's more state controlled irrigation. In India we have given permission to the farmers to put their own submersibles and tube wells. So that means it is given rise to more extended irrigation area. Further, but this is actually the wrong statement. The average productivity per hectare in Indian agriculture is higher than in China is actually the wrong statement. Now can you solve this and tell me the logic behind this? Limonite and rutile abundantly found in certain coastal tracts are rich sources of which of the following? Yes, there are certain hints you are going to pick up. पहली बात, if those are students who are knowing about the ores, they can easily identify. For example, aluminium का ore तो bauxite होता है ना, आयरन का हेमेटाइट पढ़ा है हमने, है ना, कॉपर का some calco करके होता है, I am not able to remember. Now बचा फिर यही titanium. But here the major hint is abundantly available in certain coastal tracts. Because when you talk about aluminium mines, copper mines, iron mines, mostly they are in heartland, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan. So these are the areas which are far away from the coastal areas. So यहाँ पे coastal tracts पकड़ना है, अगर नहीं भी पता है तो answer will be titanium. Now which of the following is a part of the Congo basin? So Congo means Equatorial Africa. Or there are 4 or 5 countries. One largest one is DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. Then is the Congo Republic, There's a Cameroon, there's a CAR, yes, Central African Republic, and there's Equatorial Guinea. Yes. So in this, the first option is very clear. Cameroon hai wahan pe. So that means location map, world map becomes important. Nigeria is far away, Western Africa. South Sudan is moving towards the upper part. Okay, and Uganda is beyond the Great Lakes. Okay, so ये location maps become important. So at least one or two questions from world locations randomly being asked. And I will say you definitely go to the Great Lakes area of Africa because they are very large and small lakes there. Now these are again hills. Now Amarkantak Hills you must have heard. Sheshachalam you may have heard. For example, this is difficult to know. Billy, but see if UPSC has put this, definitely this would have been somewhere in the current affairs due to maybe a wildlife sanctuary or a national park. So you should be going through the environment current affairs to identify which geographical part it is mentioning about, which hill or which landscape it is mentioning about. So if the thing which looks difficult may not have covered generally in your basic notes, would definitely be having an impact from the current affairs. Now this is on, that's why I'm saying MSP you should be knowing which crops. And among the MSP also it has mentioned about a crop called Niger. Yes, not very prominent. So here the government of India provides MSP for Niger. It is a kharif crop. So again you should be knowing about it as a kharif crop or rabi crop. And some tribal people in India use Niger seed for oil, for cooking. So unless you know about which states it is talking about, if those states have got substantial tribal population, definitely they would be using this as a oil for cooking. So all the 23 crops you should be creating a basically a proper interconnections. One more thing I failed to mention, एक और चीज हम ऐड करेंगे, कैश क्रॉप्स. besides the MSP, कैश क्रॉप्स का भाई हम ऐड करेंगे. Now ये थोड़ा चैलेंजिंग था. Which one of the lakes of West Africa has become a dry and turned into a desert? Yes. क्या लेक विक्टोरिया हो सकती है? क्योंकि इट्स द लार्जेस्ट फ्रेश वाटर ट्रॉपिकल लेक इन द वर्ल्ड. अगर इतनी बड़ी लेक सूख जाएगी तो दुनिया में हंगामा हो जाएगा. So that means this cannot be the option. Similarly, Lake Volta is a very large artificial lake in the country called Ghana, created by a dam. Okay, तो ये भी इसका आंसर नहीं है. अब बचा ये दो. Now these two are little confusing. So there's a probability कि dry lake या almost becoming a desert वहाँ हो सकता है in that area which is close to the drier part of Africa. So drier part, so when we move from the Western Africa or upper part of Western Africa, we enter Sahel region. So Sahel region, so Mali, Mauritania, है ना, all these countries are there. Burkina Faso, all these countries are there. And in that area was mostly ruled by France. Okay, among these two, when we see which of the word looks more French in nature is Fegubin. तो यहाँ पे वो extreme logic लग रहा है. लेकिन अगर यहाँ पे दो में अटक गए तो you are not supposed to attempt the question because गलत हो सकता है. Okay, so if that extreme IQ or immediately वो trick अगर आ गई, then you can solve this. So these are francophone area, and here among these two, this is more a French term. Yes, whereas term is local, but it has been used by the word has been framed in such a manner by using the French language. So this is again peak and mountains. So again, this is another area which you should be focusing on. Now this is very easy. Okay, so yes, the online viewers, yes, you are responding with your answers. So keep on responding. I hope you are able to understand the logic behind the questions. Okay, most of the questions are very doable, and many times the problem is not with UPSC. The problem sometimes in you in attempting the questions, because you either overdo or you either underread or overread or misread. Yes, that's a basic issue. So which can be the answer here? I hope first is correct. Monazite definitely contains thorium. Now, fourth, in India, government bodies only can process or export monazite because it's a rare earth mineral completely under control of government of India. So hence, this can be the answer. Now, monazite occurs definitely in the coastal areas, but here the word is entire? No, it cannot be entire. It cannot be entire. Because it cannot be entire across all the 7,500 kilometer coastline. हो नहीं सकता कि कच्छ से लेके सुंदरबंस तक हो, है ना? So entire नहीं होगा. Now, SRI. You are late, both of you. Okay, you are stuck somewhere, both of you. Yes, you must have other engagements. Okay. See, what we have discussed so far is we are not discussing the paper specific questions. We or maybe the subject specific questions. We are discussing how to answer those questions which can be driven purely by logic. So many times the questions may not be directly coming from theory and notes, but can be easily guessed when we are able to catch the keywords of UPSC. And UPSC always gave keywords. Now, for example, SRI system of cultivation in which alternate wetting and drying of rice field is practiced results in reduced seed requirement, methane production reduced, reduced electricity consumption. Okay, so first of all, it was linked with current affairs. First of all, this SRI system of what rice cultivation was in news. But here, when a new method of rice cultivation is being promoted, definitely it can be better than the previous one. Previous one was extracting too much of water. Previous one was based on flooded farm fields. Okay, that means it would be reducing all those type of things, because here the term is what they're mentioning: alternate wetting and drying. It's not completely flooded fields. When the fields are flooded means more water is required, and more water is required is more groundwater extraction is required, and more groundwater extraction means what? More running out of fuels, more consumption of electricity. Now, secondly, alternate wetting and drying means the field is always not flooded, because completely flooded field gives rise to what? Anaerobic bacteria reaction, which leads to more methane release. Drying leads to more aerobic reactions. Okay, so hence, so here, so this is correct, and definitely is going to require lesser seeds also. It will be better than the previous one. So here is purely logic, but this was also in current affairs. You can connect with the current affairs all the time. Now further here, now this is purely your climatology, and you can easily answer this. High clouds primarily reflect solar radiation and cool the surface of the earth. And second is low clouds have high absorption of infrared radiation emanating from the earth's surface and thus cause warming effect. Okay, so yes, you too, to get connected to the class, so you will be getting that on the YouTube. Yes, okay, so it's already live on the YouTube. You will get a recording. So just start from where we started, and you will be able to get into the flow of the class. Okay, and everything will be very clear. Yes, so you will not be pressurizing your mind to study this or read this. Okay, so क्या होगा इसमें? This is basic climatology. So I was telling that at least one question or two questions will be coming from climatology. See, the high clouds thick होते हैं या strong होते हैं? When you move up, thin होते हैं, है ना? So thin होते हैं तो मेरे ख्याल से insolation तो पास होगा, ठीक है? So high clouds primarily reflect solar radiation. No, means insolation will be crossing through. So first statement can be wrong. Now, low clouds have a high absorption of infrared radiation. पहले थोड़ी सी गिर गई थी, है ना, कॉफी, है ना? Now let's see, low clouds have a high absorption of infrared radiation emanating from the earth's surface and thus cause warming effect. Yes, definitely they trap, yes, the heat being released. But actually they are, as they are thick, so they have got more reflecting power. So the net cooling effect is more. Net cooling effect is more of the lower clouds. Okay. So both the statements are wrong. Now this is a school question, yes. In the northern hemisphere, the longest day of the year normally occurs in the, हम dates पढ़ते थे, इन्होंने months दे दिए. First half of the month, second half of the month, third half of the month, yes, or first half or second half. Is basically second half of the month of June. Summer solstice, है ना? Now, I was talking about cash crops. So hence there is a question on the cash crop now. So there are various boards in the country. Yes, tea board, coffee board, yes, rubber board, spices board, and now recently created Makhana board. But Makhana board is not a statutory body, but all the other boards are statutory bodies. So here the first statement is tea board is a statutory body. Yes, it is a regulatory body attached to the Ministry of Agriculture, Farmers Welfare. Being a cash crop, it is not coming under Ministry of Agriculture, it is coming under Ministry of Commerce. Okay. Head office situated in Bengaluru. It's Kolkata. So that means all these boards that I mentioned, 5 or 6 boards are there. You should be knowing their origin, connection with the Act, headquarters, okay, and definitely what they actually do. Now this board definitely has got branch offices outside. So 1 and 4 are actually correct in this. 2 and 3 are wrong. Now again, this can be purely be solved on the basis of logic. With a reference to the water on the planet Earth, consider the following statements. The amount of water in the rivers and lakes is more than the amount of groundwater. हो ही नहीं सकता. Because when we talk about groundwater, when we talk about lithosphere, when you see the entire lithosphere के नीचे groundwater तो होगा ही ना. And when we talk about the rivers and lakes, they are in only certain specific part of the entire lithosphere. So that means the surface water contained in river and lakes will definitely be less than the groundwater. So this statement is wrong. Now the amount of water in polar ice and glaciers is more than the groundwater. क्योंकि स्कूल से पढ़ते आ रहे हैं. Among the 3% of fresh water on the planet Earth, more than 95% is there in the glaciers. ये भी बचपन से पढ़ते आ रहे हैं. Volcanic rock, black cotton soil. सो हमारा टास्क पहले क्या है. हमारा टास्क है आउट ऑफ 100 क्वेश्चंस वो पहले 50 क्वेश्चन आइडेंटिफाई करना विच विल बी टेकिंग अस क्लोजर टू द कट ऑफ. नाउ इंडस रिवर सिस्टम अब फिर से न्यूज में आ रही है बिकॉज ऑफ द इंटर वाटर डिस्प्यूट अगेन. ओके, सस्पेंडिंग ऑफ द ट्रीटी. सो अगेन दिस इज गोइंग टू कम इनटू पिक्चर. सो विद रेफरेंस टू द इंडस रिवर सिस्टम ऑफ द फॉलोइंग 4 rivers, 3 of them pour into one. When 3 pour into 1, and finally that pours finally into Indus. So that is Satluj. Okay. So here all the riverine system of India, we should be having the understanding of the drainage area, the states, okay, and also the tributaries and from where they originate. So all those should be understood. So in such a manner, whatever the 4 to 5 questions or 3 to 4 questions on Indian geography will be coming, you will be able to answer all. So as we have highlighted all those important areas. Now least water efficient crop is sugarcane. Now if you must have heard about a place called Vidarbha in Maharashtra, Marathwada area, it was initially known as a sugar bowl of the country. But due to the regular monocropping of sugarcane, it has led to man-made drought. Because that area comes in the rain shadow area of Western Ghats. So more the water extraction, lesser the recharge. Why? Is the result of what? Sugarcane cultivation. Because sunflower is basically produces edible oil. So mostly all the edible oil producers or oilseeds producers consume less water. Now millet consume less water, or chana also consume less water. Now environment, all the questions, around 12 questions will be there, will be from current affairs only. Current affairs. So for last 12 months of current affairs, you should be very, very thorough. So you should be revising environment. So as I was talking about basic geography, 8 questions plus environment 12 questions, at least 20 questions will be from geography and environment. So national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, again not randomly, those which are in news for last 12 months minimum, or you can extend it to 15 months. 15 months का आप करेंगे. Similarly, tiger and elephant reserve, wetlands, new wetlands being added. Each and every year, new wetlands are being added. At this moment, around what, 98 are there? 98, yes. After recent addition, is almost touching 100, 98. Just check. It's 98 maybe. Yes, it's touching almost 100. So in last 12 to 15 months, which are the newly added ones and their locations with respect to the state. So UPSC can give what? Match the Ramsar site, newly added site with the state. Now similarly, biosphere reserves again. So MAB program, you know. So the basic and the biosphere reserves in India. So how many biosphere reserves in India? 18. And out of 18, how many in MAB? 13. Good. So list of important days again. Okay, and important days, and they are being celebrated each and every year. But what is more important is for that particular year 2025, what was the theme for that day? So here the basic what thing that you need to focus on is the theme of that particular year. Okay, so theme changes each and every year. Similarly, list of international conventions, was convention starting from the Stockholm. वो सारा आपको background भी पता होना चाहिए and the recent meetings and what are the initiatives. Organizations and the important Government of India acts, yes, वो सारे पता होना चाहिए. और Wildlife Protection Act, how many schedules are there? 4 or 6? Large 4. International there are 6. And you may be knowing about what they actually talk about, all the schedules. How they emphasize. For example, schedule number 3 is focusing on flora, flora species. So यही dimension है इसका. All the dimensions of the environment are linked with this, but mostly current affairs. For example, which one of the following is the best example of repeated falls in the sea level giving rise to the present day extensive, yes, extensive, the word marshland. So when we talk about all these are all the marshlands, but when we talk about the extensive, extensive is Ran of Kutch. तो यहाँ पे keyword क्या था? Extensive. Now this is invasive species specialist group. Belongs to which one of the following organization? IUCN, UNEP, United Nations, World Commission for Environment Development and World Wildlife Fund for Nature. हाँ, बस ये लॉजिक लगाना है. कोई भी स्पीशी की अगर बात आएगी, इट विल बी ओनली IUCN. क्योंकि अगर हमें पता ही नहीं है ये दो क्या हैं ठीक से, है ना. UNEP का तो पता है कि आफ्टर स्टॉकहोम उसके बाद आया था UNEP का, लेकिन उसका मेजर फोकस सिर्फ स्पीशी नहीं है. बट स्पीशी की बात करेंगे ओनली IUCN. Now consider the following fauna. How many of above are nocturnal or most active after sunset? Macaque is a monkey. Monkey is not active in the dark, yes, active only in the daylight, before the sunset. Deer, sambar deer. They are active in different sense because they have to avoid to be killed in the night. So they are very active in the night to avoid the predators. So there is logic with deer, है ना. Now here Malabar civet नहीं पता है, ये जरूर current affairs में आया होगा. Malabar civet is a small carnivore of the size of a small cat in Western Ghats. तो कि ये news में था. And it is also nocturnal. तो यहाँ पे ये चीज तो हम guess कर सकते हैं monkey. Deer हमें guess करना पड़ेगा. This can be guessed only if you know the current affairs. So it's always a combination of what? Yes, basic plus current affairs and your applied logic. Now this is interesting. Squirrels. Gliari सबने देखी है? Okay, so they build nest by making burrows in the ground. कैसा कभी देखा है? Chip and Dale तो देखा होगा. So when talk about Walt Disney cartoons, so Chip and Dale वो कभी भी नीचे नहीं अपना पेड़ पे होती है ना, पेड़ पे बनाती है अपना घर. Second statement, they store their food materials like nuts and seeds in the ground. ये है, छुपाती हैं वो, because they want to store it for for the conditions in which the food is difficult to find. Omnivorous? Yes, they are omnivorous. Mostly frugivorous, but they can also eat insects. Which of the following is more anthropogenic source of both methane and nitrogen dioxides? The kitna easy hai is rice. Greenwashing, I hope you may be knowing. Okay, so this was a term which became more and more common in 2023-24. That's why this was asked current affairs, greenwashing. There's also a term called sports washing. स्पोर्ट्स वॉशिंग सुना है किसी टर्म? क्या पता यूपीएससी पूछ रहे. Sports washing is being used by those countries who want to improve their image globally. Though they may be the suffocator of liberty or the human rights, they just want to project a better image by using sports as a way of what? Showing to the world, yes, that they are doing something. And this has been used with a country, for example, Saudi Arabia, where they are being calling the top tennis players like Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer, okay, or hosting what various football tournaments, okay, just to improve their image, yes, globally. So sports washing is another term. I gave you certain terms, so please go through all those terms. Again, this basically a mushroom was in news. So I'm showing you the environment questions. Environment question will purely be current affairs. So that's why when you are going to do PYQs, please, you can avoid those current affairs based questions of the past, because those current affairs questions were the current affairs of the past. So it will be better you revise the last 1 to 15 months of current affairs. Yes, 12 to 15 months of current affairs. So Gucci was the mushroom. Yes. Now, yes, international organizations, current affairs. Just a minute. Now, so Ukraine is regularly in news for last 3-4 years. That's why bordering countries. So current affairs. Now, अगर आपको नहीं भी पता है, so can you eliminate those countries which cannot be the neighbors of Ukraine? अगर नहीं भी पता है, because Latvia and Lithuania are the Baltic states. Yes, so these are far away. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, है ना? Then Czech Republic is somewhere also in the central part of the Europe. Okay, so these three can easily be eliminated. Now the confusion can be between Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania. So इसका answer actually only two है, because the answer is Hungary and Romania. Bulgaria is lower than Romania. It's not directly touching Ukraine. Again, Ukraine as in being used, so we are actually seeing the map again and again. Yes, again and again. Now again, so this is again recently. So when a term is recently means current affairs. Okay. Similarly, stability and growth. Pact of the European Union is a treaty. Again, so again, this is again a recent news, current events. International, all current events. Again, recently, all the countries of the United Nations have adopted the first ever compact for international migration. That is a global compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration. Now, the objectives and commitments stated in GCM are binding on the UN member countries. Now, if something is being coming into picture recently, it cannot be immediately binding. वो हो नहीं सकता, है ना? The GCM addresses internal migration. No, it is not linked with internal migration. It is linked with what? International migration. Okay. अगर नहीं भी आ रहा है तो हम guess कर सकते हैं इसको. Now, these are the areas of conflict, and again, current affairs. Now, Levant is also coming to picture regularly. Yes, again the crisis in the Middle East. So Levant again comes into picture. So it is a region along the eastern Mediterranean Sea. So the countries like Israel, Lebanon, Jordan are coming in Levant area. Now this is interesting. Can you identify? Consider the following countries. Which of the above are the members of Organization of Turkic States? Organization of Turkic States. अच्छा ये लड़ाई है दोनों की. हाँ ठीक है, चलो. हाँ ठीक है. हाँ नेक्स्ट. अच्छा, which of the above are members of the Organization of Turkic States? हाँ, देखो इसमें बेसिक लॉजिक क्या है व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ तुर्किक स्टेट्स. सो बेसिकली दिस इज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इन विच देयर इज अ मोर मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन. So only there are two countries are there which have got more Muslim population. One is Azerbaijan and Uzbekistan. Armenia more Christians, Croatia more Christians, Romania more Christians. So these cannot be the members of what the of this grouping. Yes. So again the logic here is simple. Yes. You have to identify on the basis of the population that they have. Science and technology again current affairs. Green hydrogen 50 बार न्यूज में आ चुका है ना. Green hydrogen. So why hydrogen is being called a green hydrogen? Huh? For its production. Good. Okay, so again, so this term is again coming regular into picture. Carbon capture and sequestration. So mostly current affairs. Okay. Now, Wolbachia method was in current affairs of 2022-23. It is linked with what? Controlling the viral disease spread by the mosquitoes. So science and tech will always be current affairs. Gone are the days when the UPSC used to ask about basic physics, chemistry or biology. वो अब UPSC नहीं पूछता है. It's only current affairs. Web 3 भी न्यूज में था. ये तो बहुत ईजी है, सभी को पता है अब तो. क्यूबिट. Now probiotics are made of both bacteria and yeast. The organisms in probiotics are found in foods we ingest, but they do not naturally occur in our gut. क्या हमारे अंदर होते हैं प्रोबायोटिक्स? होते हैं, थोड़े बहुत तो होते हैं. तो बस यही पकड़ना है इसमें, है ना, होते हैं. ओके. Economy. So what we are talking about is sterilization operations by RBI. तो क्या हो सकता है इसमें? This is basic economy. Yes, this is basic economy. Open market operations. Okay. Now, following markets. Now we know financial markets can broadly divide into two parts: money market and capital market. इसमें long term कौन सा है? इसमें short term कौन सा है? Short term है. Call term money short term है. Long term हो गया. Stock market investment can be long term. Yes. So 1 and 4 means only 2 can be the answer. ठीक है. So हमने बात करी economy. 12 questions in economy, 6 questions pure basic economy. और 6 के 6 सारे हो सकते हैं वो. So basically now I want to just ask you, yes, so far you have a certain bit struggled in the prelims examination. What according to you are the reasons? What according to you are the reasons why you are not able to what cross that first hurdle? क्या हो रहा है वहाँ पे? कहाँ पे अटकते हैं? CSET में? Nervousness on the day of the examination? Or sometimes means seeing the condition, seeing the pressure, you may be doing certain things wrongly in the paper. अच्छा, okay. So that means, so अभी जो हमने discuss किया है, so the intention of today's class was to show you the questions are very doable. The only thing you need to do is go back to all the PYQs and try to identify the keywords first of all. And definitely in all the questions UPSC always hint towards the keywords. So अब PYQs का करने का मतलब ये नहीं कि हमें आंसर देखना है. We have to identify only the keywords there. So if you develop the habit of identifying the keywords, you will be able to identify the keywords in the coming examination also. So वही आपको काम करना है. And we already discussed the areas which you need to focus on. Now next can be now small farmer large field. Which one of the following best describes the concept of small farmer large field? Now term is small farmer. How that can be converted into farmer of a large field? That can be created by farmers groups. Okay. Now see, we talk about a thing called farmer producer companies. Now we want to convert the agriculture into entrepreneurship activity. But for creation of farmer producer organizations or companies which are registered under Companies Act, somewhere they have to start with the grouping first. Because in India, it's very, very difficult to create a group and sustain the group. Because there are various what? Clashes, which can be ego-based clashes, which can be what? Caste-based clashes and other forms of clashes. Now, I actually teach this in the agriculture part, concept part. See, there's a model called JLG, Joint Liability Group. Now, you must have heard about banks providing crop loans. Many times the small and marginal farmers are not having enough collaterals to get a bigger farm loan. So now for a bank, it is always easy to give out group loans, because in a group loans, each one is liable, yes, and the responsibility is shared. So once the loans are being given as a group loan, it is converted into JLG, Joint Liability Group. And once that JLG becomes stable, it can be elevated gradually to the level of what? The farmer producer companies. Okay. So here, how the small farmer can be able to have a larger field? It can be on the basis of organize themselves into groups. Now, next is consider the investments in the following assets. How many of above are considered intangible? Huh? Only three. Yes. So brand is intangible. Okay. Inventory is tangible. Intellectual property intangible. Again, mailing list to the clients intangible. Now, UNOPS Sustainable Investment in Infrastructure is United Nations Office for Project Services. Now, this was linked with current affairs. It's difficult to answer because it is investing, promoting in the infrastructure. But in this, what is being kept outside is mass rapid transport is not the part of this. ये तभी आप कर पाएंगे जब आपको exactly पता होगा. But this is part of the current affairs. If you've gone through the current affairs, this can also be done easily. Now, which of the following activities constitute real sector in the economy? So real sector which is using labor, okay, land, capital. So definitely this is okay. Now textiles means converting raw cotton into fabrics. Again, this is using capital, labor, land. Commercial bank lending money to the trading company. No. Yes, financial sector, corporate body issuing rupee denominated bonds. No. Okay, so that means only 1 and 2 only. Okay, so what we have gained in the opening class, the purpose was to open up the questions and remove your fear in a manner that most of the questions are doable. What we have identified first of all, that out of the 100 questions we have to attempt around 80 questions and can be bifurcated into 50 and 30. So 50 questions from the basic and static part and 30 questions from the current affairs part. And among the 50 static part, you have to start with the polity first. Modern India, geography, then basic economy, then there can be what map based questions, and finally AMC, ancient, medieval and culture. So by picking and choosing around what 45-50 questions, your confidence will increase. You will be moving closer to the cutoff. Then come to the current affairs part. Tomorrow the session will be conducted by a recently selected officer, yes, rank 143, Ayush. So he will be coming and discussing questions, his way of attempting the questions. Okay, so he will be providing a very new take on that. Yes, tomorrow 12 o'clock. So Ayush will be coming. He is rank 143 in the UPSC 2025 examination, and he will bringing a new way of understanding for you, because being of same age like you. Okay, मैं तो 25 साल पुराना हो गया. Okay, so in that regard, so I being an ex civil servant, so मैंने अपना experience बताया. So he will be giving you his what a new inputs in that regard, and henceforth from day after there will be what subject specific PYQs. Okay, I hope the things were very clear now. Any doubt and query? आप दोनों देख लेना YouTube पे. Okay, thank you for the participation. So please do come 12 o'clock tomorrow for the session by Ayush. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.